A recording's being distributed later.
Oh, now it's in progress. Do I start again?
No, just continue.
Okay, just continue. So as I was saying, I have skills in Java and JavaScript and a bunch of other stuff as well. I'm a freelance consultant and have been since late 2016. I have the Delphi World's website and blog where you'll find articles, including some about Kastri. I'm author of the Codex Delphi add-in and of course the Kastri library. So today I'll take you through a brief history of Kastri, describe the features and benefits of it, explain what's in the API and core folders. I'll describe what the special features are. I'll explain why Java code is sometimes needed. I'll describe why the native controls that I've come up with were made and what they are. And I'll do some demos of the features and the code of the features that have been implemented. So now we'll go on to a brief history of Kastri. So it started out as a collection of some private code, and as it grew, which was fairly quickly, I started to think about commercializing it. While in the process of working that out, I decided to put some of the more basic stuff into a repo called Kastri Free, which some of you may be aware of already. And this would give developers a taste of what they might find in the commercial version. But in the end, I decided to open source most, but not all of the code. And I decided to have it funded by sponsorship, which I'll talk about at the end of the talk. The original name of the library was DCAF, which stood for Delphi Cross-Platform Application Framework, but I wasn't quite satisfied with that. I wanted a name that could be synonymous with Delphi. So I did some research and I found that around 390 AD, a village was built on top of where Delphi once stood. And the name of that village was Kastri. So I thought that well, this name's much better since the library is something that builds on what is already in Delphi. And this picture here is apparently an old picture of the village of Kastri. So what is in Kastri? It has some platform specific implementations of mostly Android, iOS and Mac OS APIs, but it includes some for Windows and Linux. It also provides solutions for a variety of common problems, such as for logging of native OS calls, some file and folder operations, obtaining information about the device it's running on, including things like battery status and a lot more. It also provides implementation for specific APIs and frameworks, and these implementations are known in Kastri as features. It's structured in such a way that shields you from the platform-specific implementation, and it's kept as simple as practical, so it should be easy to follow. It's always being improved and enhanced. Almost every week, something new is added. Now, being cross-platform, Kastri is heavily oriented around FMX, but there's also some support for VCL-oriented code. And today being the release date for Delphi 11, it also marks the release of Delphi 11 support in Kastri. So I'm now going to switch to, if I can get it right, here we go, API folder of, here we go. So in the API folder of Kastri, you'll find a whole stack of files, and it's now decided to change resolution on me. Anyway, there's a whole stack of files that have imports for APIs of Android, iOS, macOS, Windows, and Linux. I'll just, if I can scroll it down. Oh, that's, hang on, let's go to the right folder. That's the one. So yes, imports of APIs for, like I said, for iOS, Android, macOS and Linux. Some of these are what I term backfills, which means they contain imports of APIs that are missing from the corresponding unit in Delphi. So for example, this unit corresponds to the Mac API Foundation unit in Delphi. And there's some definitions here that you'll find that are not in Delphi. So like I say, they're called backfills. Most of the imports are being generated automatically using the Java 2.0p tool for Android, which some of you may be familiar with, and the SDK transform tool, which maybe some of you are not so familiar with it, but both of those ship with Delphi. Sorry, I sometimes come up with pronunciation when I'm talking to US audiences. So anyway, yeah, so SDK transform for iOS and Mac OS. And for some of these imports, I've used a yet to be released tool called Octoid, which you may ask questions about later. Now the import tools are not exactly perfect, so some manual intervention is required. So for especially in the case of the Android API, because Java 2.0p is, yeah, I don't know if any of you have had much experience with that, but yes, much manual intervention required for some of those. So onto the core folder of Kastri. Now in here you'll find what you might consider everyday code. That is code that you might include with almost every application. As I mentioned earlier, code is also structured so as to shield you from the platform specific code. So you'll find in 99% of the cases, you'll only need to use the platform specific unit. So for example, yeah, XIF, you only need to use this unit, which has conditional defines, and it calls the functions in the platform specific unit, such as for Android or iOS. So that means your code isn't littered so much with if conditionals. Although most of the core folder is everyday code, it has some specialized functions such as for, let me find it, geodetic calculations, application metadata retrieval. I think you'll find OS metadata, yes, there. And as I demonstrated just a minute ago, for EXIF support. The features folder of Kastri contains implementation for specific APIs or frameworks, as I mentioned earlier, mostly for Android and iOS, but it also has some Mac OS and Windows features, specifically, okay, it's not in there. I was looking specifically for some Mac OS, but anyway, so like I say, mostly for Android and iOS. Well, amongst them features for support for barcode reading using the Google ML Vision frameworks for Android and iOS, sorry. And biometric support, which is identification via fingerprint and Face ID. Camera support, which uses native APIs rather than invoking the installed apps. Firebase, which includes Firebase Cloud Messaging for Android and iOS. Speech recognition also for Android and iOS. And again, using direct APIs rather than intents. And there's, as you can see, there's a number of features that are included. For most features, there's a platform agnostic main class. So if we look inside here, you can see there's a unit called barcode reader, sorry, and that has a class called tbarcode reader. And that actually creates an instance of a descendant of T custom platform barcode reader. So you'll see in the create of, here we go. In the create of T barcode reader, you'll see that it creates an instance of T platform barcode reader. So due to the conditionals defines in here, it will include whichever unit for which platform you're compiling for. So if we go back up one step here and look at Android, you can see that there is a class called T platform barcode reader, which descends from T custom platform barcode reader, which implements the platform specific code needed to implement for the Android platform. Okay, let's move on to, so some code for Android requires the use of descendant of a Java class. Now, currently in Delphi, it's not possible to create descendants of Java classes. So some Java code must be written, which can then be consumed by the Delphi application. So the Java code essentially, as I say, descends from the original Java class, and then in the Delphi code, you can consume that Java class. So all the Java source is supplied and is in the Java folder, oddly enough. Now, if you have the need to change the code, you can use the build jar feature of the codex add-in or construct a project in Android Studio so that you can compile it into a jar. I'm a bit allergic to Android Studio, so I use it as little as possible, but other people could come up with projects in Android Studio if they wish to. And now the compiled jars are in the lib folder. So this is the compiled results of those Java files I was just referring to earlier. So you can see here there's support for biometric and for fuse location, file-based messaging, etc. So now there's been a major change in Android support in Delphi 11, which has meant that some jar files need to have versions that are specific to Delphi 11. And I've suffixed these with version 2.0.0 or greater when the time comes. The existing jars that have no corresponding jar with a suffix can be used for, for example, the camera jar and the EMDK jar here, can be used in Delphi 10.4.2 or earlier, and also with Delphi 11. I'm just going back to the slide. Sorry, I just realized I've missed some of the slides. I've just been showing you the, yeah, where do I go back to that? This way, there we go. So whilst I was developing the native camera support, which you may have noticed in the features before, I came across the age-old problem that FMX controls could not be overlaid on top of native controls. So to solve this, I came up with a set of controls that have proper Z order support so they can appear on top, which you'll see in a moment. At present, Delphi has native shape controls. I'll just go back to here for the controls folder. So yeah, we have native shape controls, which is actually in response to a request from a user of Kastri. Let's see, native shape. So in that we have support for a native ellipse and a native rectangle. So as I say, that was in response to a request from a user of Kastri. It also has a native image control, which can also display text on top of the image. There we go, native image. Native button control, and a native slider. This is an example of a control in, at least for Android, where there was a Java class that I needed to create a descendant for, so that I could make it have vertical orientation as well as horizontal. So the source for the Java part is in the Java folder. Okay, so now I'll just, oh, beauty. Oh, I'm trying to show you Delphi, and I'm having a similar problem to what I did before that. I'm having trouble. Hang on, let's see if I can get the object, another tool palette. Here we go. No, I can't. Nobody can see that, right?
It's further out to the right, most likely.
Yeah.
Just move the whole
oh, there
window.
we go.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
we
there,
go.
and then you maximize it.
I
Yep.
just need to resize it. Here we go. All right. So, resolution problems. Okay. Hang on a minute. What about if I just do this native? Look at that. Okay. So when you install the Kastri native image controls suite into Delphi, you can see you have native image, native button, native slider, ellipse, and rectangle. Okay, so now I'll do a demo of how these native controls are used. And if this works, here we go. I hope everybody can see that. And now I'll fire up the camera demo. So just face it towards the screens, get like Inception going on here. But you can see there's controls, the image controls on overlaid on top of the native control. So this control, this behind here that's actually displaying the video is a native Android control, but I've been able to overlay the native images on top of that. So that's what these are here. Okay. Ooh. So now onto the demos in Kastri. This has changed resolution again, hasn't it? I think this is a problem with parallels. Sometimes it just like wants to change resolution at will. I'm thinking what I can do here. So that I can go to the tab that I need to get to. Is it? Okay, settings. Excuse me for a moment while I curse at Windows. Display. Here we go. I don't know why Windows does this. Quite often, especially in a virtual machine, it wants to change it to 150% when I want it as 100%. So anyway, let's just move past that. And why is that over there? Now it's rendering. Normally this just shows it in the middle. Okay, so most of the demos in Kastri are built in order to demonstrate the use of the features. So most of them are also for Android and iOS. Some are for Android and iOS only. There's also a couple of demos that are for macOS. So for example, the macOS status bar demo is for macOS. There's 32 demos so far. Most of them have not most of them, sorry. Some of them have a README included, so that it explains how the demos actually work and gives details of what needs to be done in order to include the feature in your own apps. For example, this Firebase cloud messaging demo, so you can see that you need to do some configuration, for example, yeah, and also helps you with testing the implementation of this. It's also important to note that some demos which include Android support have needed to have a new dproj created. So if I go back here, for example, okay. I've created a new dproj for Delphi 11 because of the changes in Delphi 11 that have now include the Android X support. So like I say, I've created new projects which includes that support there. So now for a couple of more demos, because everybody loves to watch demos, right? So I'm going to fire up the barcode reader demo now, which should be right here. Oops, I can't do that from any desk. I'm going to start it on my device. So yeah, this is a demo of the barcode implementation, that feature, that particular feature. So you may notice I've actually used the inbuilt take photo implementation in Delphi rather than my actual camera support. That was just because it was a lot easier to do it this way. However, I'm going to just now click take photo, and you'll see that I've got a barcode here ready in front of me. And I'll tap that and say yes. And hopefully, yes, it has scanned the barcode. So that, in this case, the barcode feature uses the, as I described earlier, the Google ML Vision API. So that has implementation for both Android and iOS. Originally, I was going to do a demo for Firebase Cloud Messaging, but I've had some issues with that, which I need to resolve later today. So I'm going to go straight into the, oops, not that one, obviously, because that doesn't work at the moment. Go into the speech recognition demo. So I'm just going to fire that up. So this demo, as I say before, uses speech recognition APIs rather than going using intents like it's another method of using speech recognition. So this uses direct API. So if I press record and say, hello from the ADUG Symposium 2021. Oh, it says a dog. Apparently the speech recognition isn't clued up with what ADUG is. So sorry about that. Okay, so that gives you an idea of how you can use the speech recognition feature, which is implemented in Kastri. So that completes the, oops, I'm just trying to go back to the slide. Here we go. So yeah, that completes the presentation of Kastri. As I said earlier, there's a bunch of stuff in Kastri that you can use in nearly every project. And as I said, there's some specialized features that you could use probably use in some specific apps. There's a running joke amongst some developers that I know that if you have a problem for mobile you need solved, Dave has probably already done it, and you'll most likely find it in Kastri. You can find Kastri on GitHub, as I've been showing you earlier. So you can either download a zip file, or better still, you can use your favorite Git client to clone the repo. You'll sometimes find that I've written an article on the Delphi Worlds blog and about a particular feature that has been implemented in Kastri. And as I mentioned earlier, I used my own Codex add-in for building jar files. However, that also has a bunch of other functions. And incidentally, version 1.5 of Kastri will be out later today with support for Delphi 11. It's an open source project which I work on in my own time. So if you find it useful, please consider becoming a sponsor, and that could help motivate me to improve the library. Thanks once again, and I am now open to your questions. Hello.
Well, does anybody have any questions other than the ones that I've noted, which we will ask at the end?
What was one of those painful parts that you had to build, Dave? You know,
what's that, sorry?
What was one of the most painful parts you had to build? What did you really struggle with the most in all of this?
For what, anything in particular, or just the whole?
No, just in general. You know, if you look back on what you've built, what do you think was the most difficult?
That's a good question. I think
Or
maybe
platforms, maybe, you know, which platforms gave you the most pain?
yeah, I guess so. Because sometimes it's been Android that's been a real pain to try and work with, and sometimes it's iOS. I mean, especially on iOS, where you don't have this concept of services, where you do on Android, and trying to get things to work in the background, that has been really painful. And I'm sure, I mean, I don't know if anybody else has had that experience, but yeah, it's that kind of thing is particularly painful. I'm trying to think what else. I guess trying to get these imports, some of these imports done, especially on Android. Java 2 OP does, an okay job, but there is a lot of effort to convert some Java, Android APIs into Delphi code. Delphi code. So, yeah, I think those things. Yeah.
So would this be a good example for how to achieve exactly that? How to get, if one has Java libraries that one wants to make available to Android apps, is this would this be a good example on how to do that?
What would be a good example?
Kastri, the Kastri libraries.
Well, yeah, because I've done, like I said earlier, somebody says, you've got a problem that you need solved for mobile. It's quite often in Kastri already. Yeah. So is that what you mean, or?
Yeah, as in, would it be easy to follow, or would it be helpful if you?
Easy to follow. I don't know about easy to follow.
Made some tutorial or something like that.
Yeah, and that's one thing I've been meaning to work on more for some time now, is to actually come up with some more videos and tutorials. And one in particular is to do with this idea of number one, doing the imports for Android or iOS, and number two is it's two different problems there. You can do an import. I mean, you can use a tool and come up with that import. It may be relatively straightforward, but in order to use that is quite a different story, working out how to use it from Delphi. So it's there's quite different, I don't know what you call them, paradigms or just methods for being able to implement stuff in Delphi, and contrast with doing it in Android Studio or Xcode, for example. So yeah, I think there would be a great, it's something that I've thought often about, doing a book or a series of videos on how to do this stuff, because it's something that Delphi developers, it would be an advantage for them to know how to do that. So,
yeah. Well, one thing would be also very handy is for Delphi application or Delphi apps, especially in mobile, to talk to .NET compiled libraries, for example, would be wonderful. That would open up so much, because the UI in Delphi is
sorry, you said .NET?
Yeah, as in what you've done with Java, be able to talk to Java. It'd be nice to do the same sort of thing with .NET. I'm just going off on a tangent. I'll be quiet now.
Oh no, you don't need to be quiet. It's funny you should bring up .NET, actually, because there's I've had the need to do that myself for a client here in Adelaide, where they've wanted to be able to use .NET assemblies, and there's I'm trying to think of this product.
Hydro?
Yeah, I think, well, Hydro's one, but there's, sorry? Yeah, I know, but there's another one that constantly comes up when I'm doing searches. I've forgotten what it's called, but they've got this library that does that for you. It's a commercial one, and like I said, I can't remember what it's called now.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, my client didn't want to use that. They wanted me to be able to do it for them. So I used some of the Jedi code that there's some code in Jedi that allows you to it makes it a bit easier to create a CLR host and use the .NET objects. So that's what I end up using. But there's like
Crystal
I said,
Net?
Sorry.
Crystal Net.
Yeah, I think it might be that one actually. Yeah. So
Yeah, I've had a little bit of play with that one.
Yeah.
Dave, I've got a question. When you started doing this, were you already a experienced Android and iOS developer, or did you sort of pick it all up?
No.
Right.
It's funny because when this all started, I don't know if Jeremy North is listening in. No, maybe not. He's probably busy working with Xamarin. Sorry. I was called in to, not called in, but I was offered a position at Frontier Software in Melbourne, which does HR solutions. And Jeremy North, who some of you might know, asked me to come along. And I was actually relatively green on FMX and Android and iOS at this point. I had done a bit of fiddling around before I got there, but I learned so much when I was there. So this kind of started from my experiences there, partly from my experiences there and partly stuff that I did on my own. So yeah, but when it began, I was really, really green, and I've learned so much in the last few years, as you might guess from the results of Kastri. So yeah.
So what parts of Android and Android and iOS development, if you're looking at the documentation for those environments and so on, obviously there's going to be some parts that are very relevant to us as Delphi developers, what parts, and other parts that we don't really need to worry about because we're not coding in the environment directly. Are there sort of suggestions you could say for Android or iOS, start looking at their documentation in these particular areas? That's going to be very helpful to know that sort of stuff about Android, that sort of stuff about iOS.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea to have at least some understanding. I mean, that's true of any development tools you use. Yeah, so it really depends on how deep you want to go. I mean, you could you could just say, well, I'm just going to use Dave's tools, I'm going to use Kastri and stuff like that. Or you could, but it's always going to be an advantage to get down to the, knowledge of how these things work. Like, for example, when I was saying before about creating descendants of Java classes, because you just can't do it in Delphi. You need to be able to create a Java class or descend in Java and then compile it into something that Delphi can consume. A bit different with iOS because you don't need to do that. Most of the time you just need to consume the classes that they provide for you. So, but I still think like I said, I still think it helps to have at least a bit of understanding, because then, especially when something goes wrong, you say, well, how do I solve this? So
yeah. Any suggestions on the starting point for Android or the starting point for iOS?
Starting point. I guess. Well, for me, it was I looked at a lot of the. I thought, well, how have they done it in Delphi? So
right.
That was a good starting point for me.
Yeah.
How have they done this in Delphi? So that's where I'd start, and also with my libraries and whichever other third-party libraries you can find that actually help you to add functionality into Delphi. So there's another. I just thought of another one. You know, there was Brian Long did a couple of Code Rage interviews a few years ago, and it was specifically to, and I'll find the links and I'll post them for other people to see. But yeah, to do with accessing the iOS and Android APIs. That's a very good start. Looking at those videos, because Brian's just insane knowledgeable. I don't know if any of you know, but he just blows my mind seriously with what knowledge he has, and what he's been able to impart on other people. So yeah, those videos, good starting point.
Matthias, you've got a question.
Yeah, I've got a question, but Paul contacted us via chat already earlier, so I'd like to give Paul the first go here. Paul McGee from Western Australia.
Hey, Paul.
Oh,
hello.
G'day. Matthias have asked for me. Sorry if there's road noise.
Oh,
I'm mobile.
Are you driving?
Yeah, still at work. You were mentioned APIs and intents, and I wonder if you could maybe explain what they are, each of them.
Oh, okay.
A little.
Yeah, sure. So with
sorry, and also the name of the guy you said about the videos.
Brian Long.
Ah, great. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So the difference between using APIs direct and intents. So you may be some of you may be familiar with the idea of you. There's an application installed on your Android device and is capable of being able to perform particular tasks if you send it the right information. So you create what's called an intent, and you call this method called, I think it's called start activity or start activity for result, could be one or either of, and you pass this intent with the information that you want. So for example, in the Delphi code, when you're taking it with the take photo action, it sends an intent and says to the Android system, execute an activity that can handle this. And then once it's done it, it sends you back a result and you get the picture, for example. So, but with direct APIs, you can, if they're actually supported, of course, you can call the operating system calls if they exist to do specifically that task. You don't need to call out to another activity. You make that call and then you get the result. So yeah, that's basically the difference. So you're calling direct APIs in one case and calling out to another activity in the other case, and that passes you back the result. So that's what is meant by that.
Thanks.
Sure.
Matthias?
Yeah, Dave, you showed us some of the source code, and in most cases you had a base class, right, that
Yes.
used the specific class as kind of a decorator because it had an internal version of it. So I would be interested to know what was the reasons for not descending from it, or where is that coming from? And the other thing is, the other thing is actually, it looks to me like there's a risk of having the least common denominator principle, because you need to support both platforms. And how can you expose stuff that is available only in one of them if the way of accessing it is always the base class?
Yeah, you're quite right there. That I mean, there's limitations, of course, because well, possibly limitations because you either need to have a unit that descends, like you said, it has a declaration of a class that descends from the custom platform class that implements it for that platform, or actually in some cases in Kastri I have what I've called a default unit, where it just has like a blank implementation. So it just basically does nothing if it's not supported on that platform. Or sometimes in the same unit, I'll have just the descendant in that unit, and it's the same thing, a blank implementation. So if you create it for a particular platform that doesn't have that support, it just does nothing.
So a stub.
Yeah, stub. So, but that's it's kind of I started off this this pattern of implementation, and I've kind of stuck with it. If you look at, for example, the blogs on Gridgy, there's I'll find the link for that one too, but there's a blog on the Gridgy site where they discuss exactly these patterns that you're talking about. And the one that I've stuck with is, the one that I'm stuck with, but they discuss alternatives to doing the same thing. And you'll notice that of course, in FMX, they use like this platform service idea where you request an interface to a particular implementation. And sometimes you'll either get a nil interface, which means, well, no, it's not implemented on this platform, or you'll get the one for that particular platform. So that's, an alternative to what I've done. But like I say, there's this, and like I said, I'll have to find the article, but it's on Gridgy about the different styles of implementation. But the one that you see in Kastri is the one that I've kind of stuck with. So
in a way, it's then a superset, right? You're supporting all the methods, but sometimes the method may not do anything because it's not supported on that platform.
Yeah, there is also that too, is that just because there's an implementation for a particular platform doesn't, the method's virtual, so that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to do anything on that particular platform, or it just might return a result that says not supported here. So
Are you
sorry.
Oh, sorry, have you?
Hello?
Oh, okay. Just this question. Yeah, so Android and iOS, do any of them support the OS X and Windows as well?
Yes, there's some features that are implemented in Kastri that support Mac OS and
PCs as well.
Some that for Windows, not so many that have got Windows support. It's mostly centered around Android and iOS. It's funny you should mention that, because just recently I added Mac OS support for that speech recognition that I just demonstrated before, because I actually didn't know that there was speech recognition on Mac OS. I probably should have realized, but yeah, I've just added recently speech recognition. It's supported now on Mac OS as well. So yeah, Android, iOS. Quite some time ago I had it for Windows, but I lost I lost it. I had I'm sure I had an implementation for Windows for speech recognition, but somehow it got lost. So I have to go and do that again. But yeah, mostly Android knows. Sorry?
You lost your voice.
I lost my voice as well. No.
We've got a question from Peter Magor, if everybody's finished with that one. Peter?
Yeah, Dave, you said you're allergic to Mobile Studio. Just wondering.
Android Studio.
Android Studio. Any particular reason?
It's a bit like, well, actually, maybe not so bad as Xcode, but because Xcode is, I don't know if you ever used Xcode, but that thing is just so complex. It seemed to be, for me at least anyway. And anyway, so going back to Android Studio, it's, you start it up and you load a project and 3 minutes later it's ready to go. Whereas with Delphi, you just start it up and you load a project and it's ready to go straight away. I mean, if you've already, hang on a minute, I'll backtrack a bit. If you load a project that you haven't loaded before, 3 minutes later on Android Studio, it's ready to go. Whereas with Delphi, it's straight away. And it's well, that's one of the things that bugs me about Android Studio. Plus, I just wanted, if you want to create maybe it's just a lack of experience with it, but if you just want to create a jar like I have been for the Kastri libraries, it just seems to be a lot of work just to create this one thing. You need to create a project, and then especially in the later versions of Android Studio 2, like I said, unless it's something I haven't learned properly, but in the later versions of Android Studio, you have to create a project and they say, oh yeah, and then it uses this library. And I don't want to have to do all that. I just want to I just want to build these Java files into a jar. That's it. So like I said, that's what's made me allergic to it. So
fair enough. Thank you.
Can I just jump in with an answer to that, having just spent way too much time? I started doing Delphi development back in 1998. And the reason I chose it was because I needed to make an app. And I tried up half a dozen different IDEs. And with Delphi, I was up and running within half an hour. I made my first multi-page app and whatever. And you go to Android Studio, and it is seriously like stepping back to the early 90s in the amount of crap that you have to go through. And
I'm glad I'm not alone.
And it is so counterintuitive. And you're just like, given that it's a new product that has come out after Delphi, after Visual Studio, and like Android Studio, you're just going, what the were they thinking when they came up with it? And that pretty much sums up Android Studio for everyone who uses it. But what's really cool is because it's so bad, it's not like you got oodles of competition out there of people going, oh yeah, I'm an Android developer, because it's so crap. Anyway, that's my opinion.
Thank you for that.
Anyone who bags out Delphi, point them to Android Studio and just say, look at what's on the other side of the fence.
Yeah, but most of the time they're already coming from Android Studio or from Xcode. I think somebody that goes from that's used something like Delphi and then goes to something like Xcode or Android Studio, that's when you get the what on earth is going on here reaction. Whereas if they're already coming from there and then going to Delphi, either they probably wouldn't say that. They especially wouldn't say it because it seems to be so much easier to use. Anyway,
Okay.
Delphi it is.
What's the oldest version of Delphi that you can use with Kastri?
Okay, so officially, as of today, is 10.4, Delphi 10.4 Sydney. However, like I said, that's officially. However, if there's users from Delphi 10.3 or maybe even 10.2 that are having a particular problem and it's not a huge deal to fix, then I will look at fixing it. So,
Right.
But yeah, the official support is 10.4. Starting from 10.4.0. Although I don't. If you have 10.4.0, why haven't you got 10.4.2? That's my attitude. But anyway, like I say, 10.4 and Delphi 11 are the official supported versions.
What is missing in the older ones that made you decide that this is way too hard? After all, it's an open source project and you don't want to waste time on it, right?
Yeah, that's the main thing is going back too many versions is a lot is more effort. So, and especially in I think I was supposed to mention this in the talk actually, is that especially if you're targeting mobile, which the Kastri library is largely focused around, you should be staying current with Delphi anyway, because especially if you're getting apps on the app stores, right? So for the iOS App Store or the Android Play Store, if you're not using the current Delphi, then you're going to have problems. So, you know, it's too much effort to try and sort that out.
Matthias?
There's a wealth of tools out there that are implemented in JavaScript, right? And if there's a need on a mobile device that you can't fulfill with your Pascal code, you could use possibly JavaScript. This is why I was so keen to get Holger on board for today's Symposium, right? What would you advise someone who's actually going down the FireMonkey path and using Object Pascal to kind of get the same productivity? Because in the end, you choose Delphi because of the productivity, but on the same time, in the mobile device, you get a lot of goodies nowadays, right, that you don't have access to because they are implemented in JavaScript.
I'm not that familiar with the JavaScript support you're talking about, so I'm not sure if I can answer that.
JavaScript's implemented in JavaScript on the mobile. I don't really think there's a lot implemented in JavaScript for mobile. Matthias?
Is that like phone gap type situation, or what's the...
As far as I know, it is the JavaScript libraries that you can embed into your TMS web core application that can be part of the PWA as well.
I think that's something more for Holger. In fact, I'm going to have to talk to him about it because it's got my interest. So yeah, I don't know really. I'm not sure if I can answer that one.
Okay, not a problem.
Sorry.
If you've got a Kastri project now that's running in 10.4 or a slightly earlier version, is there going to be much effort involved in upgrading it to Delphi 11?
No, well, I think because it's usually an easy transition to go from usually, I like to say usually, yeah, there might be the odd scenario where it's a bit harder, but normally it's a relatively easy transition. I mean, when I was doing the coming up with the Delphi 11 support, I'm coming up with the support in the Kastri libraries, but for people that are actually consuming that, it shouldn't be too hard at all. So does that answer?
Have you written any apps yourself that are out that using Kastri, or has it all been work for other people?
It's interesting you should ask that, because for a number of years I was doing just so much work for other people that I didn't really have time to put my own apps out there. But like I said, interesting you should ask that, because there is an application on the iOS App Store, which I should probably update, called Memorizer. And in fact, I have an article on the Delphi Worlds blog, which I could give you a link for, that says here, this is an application I now have on the App Store. Like I said, it's called Memorizer. So it's basically it's like a extended version of notes or reminders on the iPhone. So yeah, so that's one app. I have that out there personally myself. But yeah, no others yet. Like I said, I just spent so much time helping other people solve their iOS issues. Oh, and Lachlan would be able to tell you. Please speak up now, Lachlan. I've been helping him with his products and with products that he's been associated with to get them onto apps. So I'm not sure if how many have actually been put on the App Store. Lachlan, the tools that we've been working on.
Yeah. No, they.
Is it just mostly is Easy Dairy is there, isn't it? It's called Easy Dairy, isn't it? Yeah,
that's one that you did a little bit on that for us. The other one was more of an internal tool and so on. So yeah, that's the thing about the App Store. For internal tools, you still have to put them up on the public App Store, which is a little bit weird. But
yeah,
and it doesn't.
I should say also with one of my main clients here in Adelaide, I do work for 3 days a week. They actually do, I mean, they distribute their apps ad hoc, so you won't find them on the App Store. So it's the case for a number of other, sorry, I also should mention an application called PledgeStar. There's a guy called Steve Kramer in Los Angeles from the Orange County Delphi Users Group, who has like I said, has an application called PledgeStar, who I've also helped him out getting his application onto iOS and Android. Yeah, but like I say, very few of my own, just the one of my own so far on the App Store. But yeah, there's quite a number of applications I've helped other people get out there. So yeah.
And when can we expect it on Android?
Yeah. How long's a piece of string? Yeah, that's something. Thank you for reminding me. I should try and get that on Android. So I don't know. It's given me something to shoot for now. Sorry, what's that, Lachlan?
Just curious, why isn't it there? Why didn't you sort of target them both simultaneously from the beginning?
Oh, actually, you know what? There is a good reason for why Memorizer isn't on Android yet. And that was because I was trying to implement the same. There's a feature on iOS where you can, with the location sensor, where you can set up these things called geofences. So basically what it means is that you create a longitude and latitude, and there's a radius that's concerned, associated with that location. And so that creates a geofence. So you've got a location, radius of, 100 meters, 200 meters, or however far it is. And that's already built into the location sensor in FMX, except that it isn't on Android. And so I did this research into doing the same thing on Android, and I just could not get the bastard thing to work. So, and you'll also find in the in Kastri that there is now an implementation for geofences for Android. So I can't remember exactly what right this moment what the problem was, but I've now got that working. So you can expect, I guess you can expect to for me to have Memorizer now have an Android version, because I've got this geofencing stuff working on Android. So and the reason for the geofencing, by the way, is that with Memorizer you can set up a reminder so that when you get to a certain location, it'll remind you of something. So like I said, on iOS, that was easy because it was already in build. But on Android, I didn't have something that would work. So, I mean, I could have done it, and this is the other thing too, is I could have done it by just having a constant, check where your location is. Am I within this certain area? And have it work that way, except that I wanted to be, I'm such a purist, I wanted to have this implementation of something that would say, once I get there, then tell me. Whereas, as opposed to saying, where am I right now? Am I in this location, sort of thing? And that's what the geofence support on Android gives you. So that's why it hasn't been on Android yet, and I should do that. I should get it out there on Android now.
How did you find setting up Kastri as open source and then commercial, or sort of commercializing it?
Yeah, like I said when I was describing it earlier, I originally was going to commercialize it, and I thought, I need to do all this other stuff, like, setting up payment gateways and support channels and all that stuff. And I just kept thinking, it just seems a bit too hard. And then somebody suggested to me, I think it might have been Jim McKeith actually from Embarcadero, said, why don't you use GitHub sponsors? I hadn't even heard of it at that point. So in fact, I think it might have been relatively early days for it. So I thought, okay, perhaps I'll do that instead. So yeah, like I said, that was just how it evolved. And like I said earlier in the talk, I took what I was going to put in the commercial version, or at least a portion of that, because I've got a whole bunch of other code that I haven't released to anybody else yet, because I think it's got, you know, substantial value that I just don't want to give away yet. Yeah, and I just put it together and put it into Kastri, and yeah, set up GitHub sponsorship. So at the moment, it's yeah, not a huge amount of income for me. It's like about it's getting close to 200 Australian per month. So yeah, not a huge amount, but yeah, it gives me a little bit of incentive to keep it going.
We've got another question from Paul. Paul?
Paul?
Yes, sorry. Two questions actually now. The first one was about the geofencing.
Yep.
About how like something obviously is continuously monitoring location, and
oh yeah, the operating system would be, yes.
So then it just says if such and such happens, then give this application a notification or something?
Yeah, that's basically how that works, yes. Okay. So yeah, if you go to the Android geofence demo on the Kastri, in the Kastri repository, in fact, I think there is even a, I am still sharing my screen, cool. Okay, so there's a README, I think, for that one. Where are we? Go back one step here. Android geofence. I don't know why this is so far across the screen, but anyway. Perhaps if
and the other question that you may or may not want to engage with is obviously one of the things that gets talked about is Flutter for mobile applications.
No, I don't want to talk about that.
Sure.
Yeah, I've thought about looking at Flutter, and there's a number of people that I know that sing its praises, and yeah, I just haven't looked at it yet really enough. Yeah, so I mean, I've also seen some descriptions of it being really, oh no, there's some really huge problems with it, but which I can't remember right now. But like I say, I really haven't looked at it much yet because I'm so focused on Delphi. So no, yeah.
Sure. I didn't know if it was maybe like a shiny JavaScript Lite for mobile or something like that. Like
I don't know what it is actually. I mean, I know that it supports Android and iOS, and I also know that it uses this oh, what's it called? There's a framework that somebody's just done a wrapper for Delphi. I'm trying to think of what it's called. It's just like this graphics library, and it sounds freaking awesome. But yeah, I can't remember what it's called. But apparently Flutter uses that for its graphics rendering. So it can't be too bad. But I don't know, can it do Mac OS and Windows?
Malcolm's just made a comment about Skier. Is that the product?
Oh, Skier, that's the one. Yeah, that's it, Skier. So there's this cross-platform library called Skier, which is supposed to be really super cool for rendering graphics on multiple platforms. And there's a guy, I can't remember what's his name, Vinicius. Anyway, he's done it looks to be an excellent wrapper. I've still got to look at it, but looks like an excellent wrapper for this library. So yeah, I suggest looking at it. It's supposed to be like the thing. So
does anybody have any more questions or not? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Well, thanks, Dave. That's been really interesting talk. I wish I'd remembered about Kastri a few years ago. I think I would have been enjoying using it.
Well, you can use it now.
Well, I can, yes. I'll have to have a look at it.
Excellent.
Yeah, thanks for your time. And we look forward to hearing more about other people's experiences of Kastri. So I think it's close enough now to 12 o'clock that people might be having tummy rumbles. So
I know I am.
we'll see you all a little later.
All right, thanks again. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to ask if anyone else had problems with their sound in the WonderMe room previously in the last break. I had difficulties.
It worked better when I jumped out of the Zoom meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't get it to work.
Okay. So
here.
Maybe we use instead the breakout rooms of Zoom feature, so we don't need to switch between the applications. Are you guys keen to talk to each other in breakout rooms where you can switch from one room to the other and see who's in which room?
Oh, just give it another try again, but just if you're having troubles, drop out of Zoom. But I just found as long as you disconnect first and go across, it was all fine.
Okay, good. Thanks a lot.
Disconnecting, I think, is the key. I think we have two applications and they both try to use the camera and the microphone as a resource. So if you just turn them off in Zoom, then you have them again available in the other program. And that worked fine for me, but you got to turn off. Yeah.
Thanks, Peter.
I just turned off my mic and turned off my camera, and I could use WonderMe. The only issue was that when you were setting up with Dave, the Zoom sound was coming through. But that might be something I didn't turn off in Zoom.
I had that issue as well, and my solution was to flip to another audio device. So you've got your mute microphone, and you say audio, and you pick something that you can't hear, so a headphone or something. In this way, I muted Zoom, and then I could talk. Otherwise, you have Zoom as a background. It's really noisy.
Good point. Okay, well, we'll see you after lunch.
Yeah.
If you click on the mute, the arrow above the mute, there's a leave computer audio button. And you just click on that and you can click back afterwards.
Perfect. Good point. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Thank you.
Swarm knowledge here. Thanks.
Yeah, what the fuck is all about? Oh, no, why? Dicks.
Many of us have been developing software for our customers for quite a while now. We help our customers find solutions to their problems. But there's one problem that most of us don't have a good solution for, and that's when your customer asks you. That's not an easy question for a solo developer to answer, but the Continuity Group is here to help you with that. We'll help you put plans in place that will give your customer peace of mind that their investment in your software is safe. So come find us during the breaks today and learn more about how we help Delphi developers answer these questions and more. Many of us have been developing software for our customers for quite a while now. We help our customers find solutions to their problems. But there's one problem that most of us don't have a good solution for, and that's when your customer asks you. That's not an easy question for a solo developer to answer, but the Continuity Group is here to help you with that. We'll help you put plans in place that will give your customer peace of mind that their investment in your software is safe. So come find us during the breaks today and learn more about how we help Delphi developers answer these questions and more.